No discussion of death and dying would be complete without considering near-death experiences, or NDEs. If you're not familiar with this experience, it's when someone has an accident or health condition in which they die, yet then later come back to life. This is actually a very common experience in modern hospitals, as well as in traditional cultures. A Gallup poll of random sample of Americans found that around 3% of the population reported having an NDE, and a study in Germany found a similar percentage. In Tibet, there's even a special term for a person who leaves their body and returns, a delog. NDEs have been extensively studied by scientists over the past 50 years. In 1975, Dr. Raymond Moody published his seminal work, Life After Life, in which he coined the term near-death experience and identified several common characteristics of these experiences, including feeling like one is located outside one's physical body, floating or drifting through darkness, sometimes described as a tunnel, becoming aware of a golden light, encountering and perhaps communicating with a being of light, having a rapid succession of visual images of one's past, a life review, experiencing another world of much beauty, an overwhelming feeling of peace and well-being. Each person's NDE is unique, though, and it's rare for a person to experience all of the signs that Moody and other researchers have described in their studies. People who experience NDEs consistently describe them as being a deeply spiritual experience, one that gives them new meaning and perspective to their lives. Many times, people find that their lives take a radical change after their NDE, with many positive shifts arising, along with a heightened sense of the meaning of their lives. There are many interesting books and articles that describe numerous NDEs if you'd like to delve into the topic. I'll provide a few references below to some that I have enjoyed. I am fortunate to have had an NDE on my 55th birthday, no less. I, like most people, found it to be life-changing, probably the most positive experience I've had in my entire life. My NDE unfolded a bit differently than most, though, and I think that was because of my training in the bardo practices with my Tibetan teachers. I had studied deeply the process of death and dying with Yongdzin Tenzin Nandak Rinpoche and His Holiness Lungtuk Timpa Nima Rinpoche. When I was in long retreat at Minri Monastery in India in 1997, His Holiness had made this the central point of my training and made me his assistant during many death rituals and meditations. As a result, I was steeped in a tradition that has mapped out the process of dying and rebirth in great detail, one that points out that death is a great opportunity for liberation. I think that's probably enough of an introduction. Let's get to the actual story and the experiences that arose in my own near-death experience 10 years ago. I was in Germany, having led a weekend meditation retreat there, and stayed afterwards with my hostess and student. I had a few days before going to Eastern Germany to lead a week-long retreat. My wife had emailed my hostess, letting her know my 55th birthday would be while I was there, and that I really enjoyed German chocolate cake. My hostess, always a straight-speaking German, informed her that she had never heard of German chocolate cake. But why was I in Germany in the first place, much less leading meditation retreats? I'd been practicing meditation at that time for 37 years, and my Tibetan teachers had asked me many years before to begin teaching. After going through a 4-year teacher training program with Tenzin Wangyal Rinpoche, and receiving empowerment to teach from His Holiness Lungtuk Timpa Nima, the head of the Bön tradition, my teaching partner, Dr. Raven Lee, and I were asked to lead a 2.5-year intensive training program in Europe. This led to my later teaching in many places across the continent. I also had helped found the Chamaling Solitary Retreat Center in the Sangre de Cristo Mountains of Colorado in 2001, and had served as the director for 12 years by that time. Along the way, I'd spent a good amount of time in solitary retreat, as well as training with my teachers in Tibetan monasteries in India and Nepal, and going on pilgrimage to Tibet. I had a penchant for traveling to sacred places, and had traveled around the world twice on pilgrimages, visiting over 30 countries along the way by that time. This was what I did in my spare time. In my day job, I was a professor at the University of Virginia School of Medicine. As the Director of Educational Technology, I managed a sizable staff, large budgets, and consistently worked 50 or 60 hours a week. I enjoyed working a lot with a lot of great people and found it intellectually challenging and constantly stimulating. But my job was consistently stressful, especially in the previous few years when there had been a big turnover in the leadership. I had served as the interim assistant dean of medical education, and then whenever I stepped down from that position, I found I was working for an alcoholic who became increasingly incompetent. I developed sinus tachycardia and atrial fibrillation, heart arrhythmias triggered by stress, in which the heart begins to race and beat erratically for no apparent reason. Some days I experienced several episodes, and I felt more and more drained each time. I found myself living in two worlds, as a faculty member and senior manager in an esteemed academic institution, and simultaneously in a lifetime of Dharma study and practice, where I had met many amazing teachers and practitioners. But rarely did these two worlds of my professional and spiritual lives cross, for I did not share my spiritual path openly with my scientist and physician colleagues, for most would not have been able to understand and appreciate that dimension of my life. Everyone at the university knew I meditated, and I was calm and peaceful, and we left it at that. The night before my birthday, I heard my hostess working in the kitchen late into the night. When I woke up early the next morning, I found that she had made me a birthday cake. Since there was no such thing as a German chocolate cake in Germany, she had made a heavy chocolate torte made of probably 75% dark chocolate. She served this to me with much love for my breakfast, along with strong Earl Grey tea, one of my favorites. I was flattered and enjoyed the amazing treat for my breakfast. Not long afterward, my heart rate went up, and I experienced my familiar heart arrhythmias. I wasn't alarmed, as this had happened many times before, but it continued for quite some time, which was unusual, for normally these episodes lasted only a few minutes. What I didn't realize was that the combination of an empty stomach, strongly caffeinated tea, a large serving of strong bitter chocolate had combined with my existing heart condition to become a life-threatening set of circumstances. I excused myself and went into my bedroom to lie down and rest, which usually helped the arrhythmias resolve. I then called my acupuncturist by Skype, as she had been able to help me with my arrhythmias in the past, and had told me she could do remote healing work, for she is trained as a shaman as well. Because of the time difference, I woke her up. She sleepily replied that she would wake up with a shower and then call me back in a little bit and try to help. I lay back down to rest. As I lay alone in my room, my heart rate was very, very fast and erratic, and I lost consciousness. Then suddenly, I found myself out of my body, looking down on my inert body on the bed, and I realized something major had happened. Possibly I went into atrial flutter, or my atrium and ventricles were so far out of sync my heart wasn't pumping blood, but in any case, it seemed my brain had not received adequate blood flow to continue functioning. I had died. I floated above my body and looked around the room. I realized I was dead, but I didn't feel alarmed, as I had gone through a lot of training by my Tibetan teachers about the dying process and felt comfortable with where it leads. As I looked around, a doorway appeared in the solid wall above my bed, and that doorway radiated golden light. But it was much more than just light, for it was the presence of the divine itself. I had read of others' near-death experiences and was familiar with the stages of death and bardo described by the Tibetans. So I recognized this doorway as the entrance into the beyond. As that golden light radiated into the room, I experienced the infinite love that is the divine presence more clearly than I'd ever experienced in meditation. Though I'd had many tastes of this experience in my meditations, never before was it so clear, so powerful, and incredibly beautiful. Having shed the confines of the physical body gave me the ability to have a much clearer perception of that infinite loving light that is the essence of all that is, what we call the Dharmakaya in Buddhism, the formless divine presence that fills all existence. I stepped into that doorway and became awash in that divine loving light, recognizing it for what it is, the infinite beyond all description. In the Tibetan descriptions, this is called the clear light bardo, and it is said that if one can recognize this for what it truly is, one may dissolve the individual egoic identity and achieve liberation, total actualization. I stood in that doorway, symbolically with one foot in the clear light that is infinite love, and one foot still in the human world. I recognized that I had the choice, and that if I chose to step fully into that light, John would totally dissolve into the divine. My individual self would return to complete union with the source of all, never to return. I was very powerfully drawn to this light, for the experience of the infinite love is beyond any bliss that can be imagined. Yet, I hesitated. I came to a deep inner knowing that I had work to be done in my old body, especially with my family. My son at that time was 8 years old, and he needed my guidance and protection. There was also work that needed to be done with my wife. And as I learned later, there was much more to explore in my spiritual path. With that knowing, I chose not to dissolve into the divine light at that moment. My eyes fluttered open, and I discovered I was back in my body. My heart was beating normally. I felt fine, more than fine, for I continued to glow with the infinite love that I had so deeply experienced. I sat up and decided to call my acupuncturist and let her know I was okay. When she answered, the first words out of her mouth were, "That was really close." She had felt I'd left and been working on her end to pull me back into my body. I physically felt fine, yet it would take me several years to fully process my experience. What followed I could never have predicted, for I was able to do many things I had never had the courage and vision to do. Yet a certain clarity and purpose filled me. Over the next few years, I left my prestigious and stressful position at the university and devoted myself to teaching and practicing meditation. I ended my dysfunctional marriage, and I connected with my soulmate. My son and I have grown ever closer. Essentially, I overcame my fears, and I explored new, wonderful directions in my life. For I no longer fear death, knowing it to be an incredibly beautiful experience. With no fear of death, many other fears dissolved as well. I came to live a life of freedom, of trust, of surrender to the beautiful flow of life. What happened on my 55th birthday? How is it that my birthday cake transported me to the realm of clear light? And how is it that on my birthday I was reborn to a new life? I can only marvel at the symbolism and be thankful for this incredible gift. I no longer plan my life, for it simply flows, and I do my best to recognize all the beauty and opportunities that it offers. It seems that nearly every day is filled with amazing synchronicities and gifts. The many transitions I've experienced since leaving my body have not been easy. In fact, many were gut-wrenching. It felt like a lot of old, useless patterns had been forcibly removed from my being. But through this, the golden light has gradually filled in all the wounds, and infinite love is becoming more and more familiar, my constant companion. I deeply enjoy my new life and am profoundly grateful for my near-death experience.